This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Welcome to this edition of the SAU Report. I am Viola Freeman.
And I'm Charles Bostick. Today we have a media roundtable discussing news coverage with broadcast journalism students. Today we have Liz Mattern and Greg Dawson. Thanks for being with us. Liz, where do you get the majority of your news?
Majority of my news comes from 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news. I really don't look at the newspaper much unless I'm interested in sports. Internet, I know I've never used the internet for a news source once at all, but I would have to say a lot of my news comes 6 o'clock news, Channel 10, things like that.
Right. Do you ever use the radio for news?
No. Usually when I hear the radio, when the news comes on the radio, I usually either flip the channel. If it's Paul Harvey that comes on, I like to listen to Paul Harvey, and I'll sit there and I'll listen to him.
Right.
But not on the radio.
Greg, where would you say you got your most news?
Well, being a sports fan I am, and I love video games, I use the internet. Sports page of the newspaper, magazines, friends, and family, things like that. I like to go by gossip and hear the dirty side of the negative and positive sides of things. So.
That's probably part of being an American, is getting the negative side of the stories too.
I would have to agree with him, because when I found out that Princess Diana died, I didn't find out by the news. My mother called me and told me. I mean, and that was, a world issue, and my mother's the one that told me. So friends and family and gossip and just talking with people, you find out a lot of different things.
Right.
Okay. Do you think that the local news is informative?
I think that the local news is informative as much as it can be. It's not as informative as Tom Brokaw would be. They have their limits and they have their budget, things like that, but 2020 Dateline, those types of things are not. Those are more informative than KTVE would be, your local news stations.
Right, there's only so much you can put into a local newscast to make it interesting. Like 2020, they have much deeper issues to cover than a local newscast would.
And a much bigger budget to
Right.
cover the issues.
Right.
Yeah. And local newscast only has 30 minutes. These big, huge ones have 1 hour to spare.
Right.
Local newscasts are shot live and they've only got 30 minutes.
Right. Greg, what keeps you stay tuned to a newscast? Is there something particular that helps you stay tuned?
Well, commercials do. I know you want to watch the news, but commercials actually keep me up through the news show, and they advertise different things. And when you come back to the news, you actually want to watch the TV a little bit more after the commercials go off.
Right.
I know something that it may not be news related, but that keeps me watching, like the Super Bowl. A lot of people sit around, they'll sit in front of that TV and just wait for the commercials to come on.
Right.
Those $1 million commercials they want to see. But things like, on 2020, they have a timeline. That keeps me interested. That'll keep me in front of the TV and watching. And sometimes on Dateline and 60 Minutes and things like that, in between the commercials, they'll break through and saying, coming up next is this story, and I want to watch that. And I'll sit there and I'll wait for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the directors have a good style to do that by, depending on what the show is,
It seems recently local newscasts have come up with gimmicks to keep the viewers interested, such as the cash, or call cash. Is that what it's called? Yes, and like they have a doctor on or a veterinarian where you can call in and maybe ask them questions, or a gardener.
Ask the expert.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, but that was very intuitive. That was very smart. Because really, people do have questions about different issues that go on in the home, and they may not have anyone around they can ask. They may not have the funds to pay for going to see a veterinarian or something.
Right.
So that was very smart.
Along that same note, they do many promotions and stuff, like on Channel 6, I believe, it's Dialing for Thousands.
Yeah.
Daryl Rebouche, and I know, Greg, you have to watch many shows to get the clues and stuff to win this money, and it's something about money that makes people stay tuned.
Yeah.
Draws people.
And on local radio stations, they have treasure hunts, and every day they give out certain clues, and that's going to get the people that are driving in cars to listen, and you promote money to find money, and if it's over $1,000, who isn't going to go look for it?
That's right.
And that's just a fun thing to do. Also, a treasure hunt. Lots of people want to take part in that.
Yeah.
Gives you a chance to get out and get around, meet other people that are treasure hunting also.
Right. I know a lot of the radio stations, they start competing. One radio station will have $2,000 you can win, and the other radio station will have something like a home entertainment center, and you're out looking for both of them. So I think they compete too.
Right.
For looking for money.
But competition is the edge to ratings.
Right.
Anytime you have a good conflict between characters or different stations or anything, you're going to get good ratings.
Yeah.
People love a conflict.
That's true.
Good point.
Well, do you think local news is informative enough? Does it give you enough information about what's really going on around the community?
Of course, local news, national news, anything that's going to have information to get to your viewers is informative, important, anything you want to call along those lines.
Right, and Greg, you said that they're informative. Do you think the stories are too one-sided when they show it on local news?
Yeah, because at times it can be.
Right.
Local news tend to have that one-sided thing, but like you said, 2020,
Right.
they show both sides of the story. Plus, it's longer, so they can get around
Right.
to a fuller view of what happened
Right.
in the situation.
Usually in local newscasts, they only have a certain amount of time that they can put this story into. It can only be maybe a 2 or 2.5 minute story,
Right.
and they can't get all the facts, and they can't get this person's side or that person's side. As yet on 2020 or Dateline, like Greg said, they have a whole entire hour
Right.
to view one point.
But do you think it's fair to broadcast a news show where you only have one side of the story? If you're not going to dedicate the full
No.
time to find out the whole
No.
story, should you broadcast just that half?
I don't think it's fair at all that they show, one side.
Right.
Like, for example, say it was a domestic dispute between a married couple, you're going to go for the woman, and the woman may be the victim.
Yes.
But yet you go to, if you ever went to the man, his wife may have been an alcoholic, may have even been beating
Right.
him. You only get one side, and no,
Right.
that's not fair, because you don't get the whole story.
That's a good point. Greg, there's many people that feel that television news is too much negative and not enough positive. Do you feel this way, or do you think they should do anything about this?
I feel whatever the community is doing, if nothing but negative things are going in the community, how can you do anything? How can you focus on the positive?
That's right.
So, I think that whatever's going in the community, just go with the flow.
I don't think you should go out there and look for something positive. If something positive is happening, then go out there, get the story. Yet, if someone is killed, or if a child was kidnapped, you're gonna go for that story because
Right.
that's what the people want to hear. They want to hear a child that got kidnapped. That's what draws them into watching these shows. That's why usually the top story of a local newscast is usually a murder victim, or someone that's been kidnapped, or a store that's been robbed.
Right.
It's not your local, let's go to, the pound and let's see all the puppies.
Right.
Right.
They don't want to hear that.
Maybe they should at least try to level it up just a little bit more, because there's hardly any positive stories, and some people, unlike you two, like to hear the positive stories just as much as they want to hear who
Right.
got killed and what have you.
Right.
I feel that if you're in a community where the negative outweighs the positive, as a staff member of a news broadcast, or the producer or the anchor or whatever I am, I would want to get out into the community and see what I could do to help, to try to motivate people to do positive things in this community. Get the kids out to play basketball or something positive. Let's get away from the streets or whatever it is, wherever the trouble is.
And that should be the top story.
Right.
But it never is.
Right.
Right, like if someone is shot, let's say someone gets killed, maybe they could run a story after that telling people how to control your guns
Right.
instead of
Right.
going out and having kids kill kids. you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you think the segments of news broadcast are allowed enough time to give you an adequate amount of information to understand the topic in depth?
No, like I said before, local newscasts are only given so much amount of time. They're only given a certain amount of money, but you go to New York and Hollywood and all these types of places, and they're given a certain amount of money and a certain budget and a certain time limit to where they can get more of the information out to the public.
I think they do, because just put the information out there. If I want some more questions or more information on it, there's the internet, or you could have newspapers, like I said, family and friends. You can find out things from them too.
Sometimes, like, say you listen to the radio for your news and they give you the facts, and then someone else hears that same newscast on the radio, they can get a whole different idea just because one fact was left out of the story. So maybe they should include all the facts, and if they don't have all the facts, don't run the story at all.
Yes, yes, that's very true.
Well, there are shows like Inside Edition that basically glamorize the news. Greg, how do you feel about these glamorized programs?
I like them. Things when you focus on celebrities' lives, those are interesting. You know, you want to get outside the norm.
Right.
You want to focus on somebody else other than yourselves
Right.
every now and then. So that's why I like those TV shows.
That's true. I know I watch a lot of Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight, and you know, and I think that all of these shows, they'll always be on the air as long as there's somebody out there willing and wanting to know. There's always going to be somebody out there that wants to know what's going on with the celebrities and stars, because their lives are one huge news broadcast, and they know
Right.
that, you know, people are going to want to know what's going on with Jennifer
That's
Aniston
true.
and Brad Pitt. They're going to be hooked, and I'm always hooked. If I turn on one of these shows at night, I'll watch it for 30 minutes.
Right.
Because you're always wanting to know.
That's a good point.
As I said earlier, conflict sells. So any trash show, as I call it,
Yeah.
you know, Access
Jerry
Hollywood,
Springer, same
yes,
thing.
that's always going to be viewed and have a pretty good rating because conflict sells.
Right.
People love to see people into it. Someone strung out on drugs, just anything sad to make
Who
your life
married
look better.
who, and
Yes.
who's had an
Right.
affair, and yeah.
Sometimes these movie stars don't let you know who they marry or what
Right.
have you.
No,
They don't
they
give you the
don't.
facts because they know if they do, it's going to be on Inside Edition or Entertainment Tonight.
See, that leads to another question. Do you feel like the media, news reporters, the paparazzi as they're called, can sometimes be too persistent into someone's personal life?
Yes, they can. And an example, Princess Diana, they were a little too involved into her life. You know, whoever she was dating at the time, it was really, it's none of our business.
Right.
And, you know, it was her business, and I think they took it over the edge just a little too far, and it ended up in a tragic accident.
And another example is Dennis Rodman. He wasn't always as wild as he was. He started out as a calm guy. Then he started getting popular. They started taking pictures and doing stories on him. Then he's wearing wedding gowns,
yes.
and wearing lipstick and female T-shirts. It's crazy.
Marrying
They go,
himself.
they go over the edge.
But where do you draw the line? How do we know when enough is enough? You know, what should they not bring into the viewer's home? You know,
I don't think you're ever going to know where to draw the line, because I think the more persuasive that you are and the more determined you are to get that story, you're going to do whatever it takes to get that story, whether you take someone's life or, you know, whatever the occasion might be.
Well, sometimes they actually do draw the line because, for example, Dale Earnhardt, when his crash happened, no one knows what happened inside that car. Even though they do have the footage, no one actually knows. So sometimes they will keep the facts away from the public and not tell them. All right. Back to the story about the point about negative stories. Do you think that people watch the news for negative stories, or why do people watch the news? Greg?
Just to get information, like I said. I don't think they just tend to click on the negative stories, but it's there. And if it's interesting, you're going to watch it.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
It kind of sparks that interest in
Right.
the negative story.
yeah.
All right.
do you feel like the media withholds certain information, maybe to even keep the majority from panicking in a certain situation? For example, the U.S. and China are having conflicts right now. And just hypothetically, what if already President George Bush has written a statement saying that we are going to war with China? Would you want to know that as soon as he signed the statement, or would you want to wait a couple of weeks and let them make sure all their paperwork is right? And
Now, I would want to know. I would want to know what is going on in my country, but yet you have a billion other people in this world that would want to know too. And you tell, you know, a billion people that this country and this country are fixing to go to war, you're going to have a huge uproar, and you're going to have a big problem on your hands.
so you feel like it's right for the
It's
media
right.
to
It's
withhold
right.
certain information?
I think it is. I think it is right. I mean, that's a million people. It'd be different if it was just 10 or 15 people finding out.
Right.
But that's two nations finding out about something. That's going to be
Right.
one big, huge
Right.
disaster if they find
Right.
out early on in the game.
Right. Well, I guess sometimes they leave that information out because, like you said, they don't want Americans to panic
Right.
because war is something that most Americans don't agree with. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of Americans just don't want to go to war. So maybe that's why they won't tell you in advance that maybe we're going to war with China or what have you. That's a good point. All right, Greg, there are many news anchors on TV and radio, different news anchors and stuff. Is there anything that makes an anchor better than another anchor?
attitude and emotion, what he puts into the story. People like comedy, so
Right.
if he says something funny, that actually keeps people into, and that's what makes him better than the next person.
Right.
Just having the extra talent to do something, to keep people on.
Yeah, I guess that on radio they use a lot of emotion because when you read something, if you don't put any excitement into it, it can be really quite boring, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's true, and that's also you have a radio DJ and you have a news anchor.
Right.
You know that the news anchor that's on television has a lot more stress, and because they have appearance, they have to talk straight, they have to look, be presentable.
Right.
But a radio DJ, they could have their hair pulled up, looking like they just got out of bed, and no one is ever going to know what they look like
That's
just by
true.
the sound of their voice.
That's very
That's
true.
all that they have on them is their voice.
I agree with that.
So do you think local news brings quality stories compared to the national news, radio news, internet news, the newspaper?
I think to an extent they do. I think if they're what their time limit is and their budget, like I said before, yes, they do bring quality news for what they can. The national news, of course, will bring better quality because they have longer time and a bigger budget.
Greg, you said earlier that you liked radio news to an extent. Just exactly what is it that you like about radio news? What exactly do you like about it?
They, like I said, that they have to say something better to keep people viewing.
Right.
Like, if you're on radio, people are going to get bored just by hearing your voice. So they want to keep you away from the TV. So I watch Dan the Man. He's a joker.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, he's funny. And when he says things that makes me laugh, that keeps me tuned to it.
Right. It's kind of like Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey is, he's pretty interesting to listen to because there's just something about him that makes him fun to listen to.
The rest of the story I get really into.
Right.
But also, there's some people out there that don't like to listen to radio news, and they will get bored with it, and they'll change the channel.
Right.
And they'll go, and they'll start, this radio station in their minds will start to build up, this reputation of this radio station doesn't play a lot of music. I'm not going to tune into this when they talk too much or they have commercials too much.
Yeah.
So I think radio stations need to limit their time to news. I think they should deliver the hard news, the news that the public wants to hear, and that's it.
Right, so maybe they should just let the TV stick with the news
Let the
and let them
TVs
play music.
And then the newspapers, I know some radio stations read out every single obituary.
Oh, yeah.
These people, they can go to the newspaper and read their
Right.
obituaries. That's what
That's a
they're
good
putting the
point.
newspaper for. And I've heard the obituaries, and they get boring, and I will turn the station.
Man. There are other shows on the radio, such as locally we have the Friendly Show on KBMA, and I just get a big kick out of these people calling in and wanting to sell this stuff. And to me, it's entertainment. It's not supposed to be entertaining; it's supposed to be informative. But
But it's funny at
when
the
you
same
listen to the
time.
radio, you get a lot of entertainment,
Right.
laughter.
That's true.
That's what I feel about Paul Harvey, though. He reports the news to an extent, but I feel like he's more entertaining than informative.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he puts his own little twist on it, his own little personal opinions. So it's a little real news and more Paul Harvey's opinion.
I'm also sure at the beginning of his career, it was to inform the public. It
Right.
wasn't to be, but the media and the public built him up to be Paul Harvey
Right.
and the
Right.
rest of the story.
Yep.
People tune to him to get entertainment and to get a laugh,
Right.
but yet they also tune in to get information.
Right.
That's a good point. And when you hear Paul Harvey, you know exactly who it is, and you know exactly
He's
what
got
he's
that
going to
very
talk about.
distinct
Right.
voice.
It's a good thing about radio is you can actually hear their voice and know who they are. Whereas TV, I can not even tell you what some of the news anchors sound like. I just know what they look like. So, like you said, looks on TV are quite a bit, mean a lot.
So do you enjoy political shows such as Larry King Live or Politically Incorrect?
I enjoy Politically Incorrect to a point. Now, when they start yelling back and forth
Right.
and they can't get a word in,
Right.
that's when I sit there and say, okay, y'all need to calm down and talk about this. Larry King, I like Larry King. He laughs, he jokes with the
Right.
person he's interviewing. It seems like he gets along with
Right.
everyone that he interviews. Same thing like when Johnny Carson was on.
Right.
I loved Johnny Carson just because he made you laugh, he made you have a good time on the show, and he
Right.
made you want to stick to this television set and watch it.
That's a good
You know.
point.
I feel like that is an enjoyable fact about any coverage, whether it's entertainment or news. If you can keep the people happy, laughing,
Right. You've done a good
feeling
job.
good about your show, you've done a good job.
Right.
All right, Greg, let's kind of change the subject. I don't mean to change the subject, but we're going to talk a little about the internet. Do you think the internet will ever replace newspapers completely?
Oh yeah, especially with technology growing, it's going to replace the newspaper. It's going to be cheaper. You don't have to go out drive to the corner and get a newspaper.
Right.
You just click on a button, find what you need to find, and it's right there in your hand.
I would disagree to a point with Greg, because I think as being someone, as I get older, a lot of people get their enjoyment out of waking up in the morning,
Right.
sipping a cup of coffee, and reading the newspaper
Right.
for 30 minutes. That's an enjoyment out of their day, and some people do look forward to doing that. I don't know if they look forward to so much sitting down in front of their computer screen and clicking on a button.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe in the future, maybe newspapers won't actually be paper. It'll be more like a news, something else digital maybe. Not like the internet. Maybe you can carry it around possibly. Maybe if you just,
Be emailed to
Right.
you, maybe.
just technology is going to change everything in the future, I believe.
Which, they already have the telephones with the internet service to
Yeah.
them.
Right, right.
So once those are more mainstream and into
Right.
the general public,
Right.
then newspaper and
They
newscast
will be
on
obsolete.
television, they will become more obsolete.
Right.
I do believe.
I
agree
think
with
it'll
that.
be easier, but yet I still have my opinion.
But you're still going to have people who are old-fashioned that
Right.
just want
That's
to
right.
sit down and read a paper or watch the 6 o'clock news.
Right.
You're
Right.
still going to have those people.
Now, speaking on the internet, I don't use the internet much, but I'm a big baseball fan, and you can get on the internet and just get any single thing you want to know. You can put a picture in there and a batter and figure out all the stats just by one click. If you look at a newspaper, you have to flip through the whole thing to find what
Yeah.
you want. So maybe
That's
the
true.
internet's kind of a source you can use to supplement newspapers if you want to.
Well, I know the internet does help, because when the GSC conference playoffs were happening, my boyfriend wanted to know what was going on, and he just clicked right onto the computer, went to the playoff brackets, and it was
Right.
very, very helpful. And it's not just getting in your car, driving out, having to go get a newspaper.
That's a good
So the
point.
internet is very helpful.
Right.
It's very convenient.
Yes, very
Yeah.
convenient.
It can
Agree.
be.
My opinion on with the internet replace regular newscast. Eventually, yes, I think it's going to take some years.
Right.
Everyone's going to have to become technological before
Right.
it really replaces it. But eventually, yes, because of the convenience.
Right, and the internet, as we know it today, will be quite different in the future, I'm
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
People like cable TV, and cable TV won't exist, Sort of like that,
Technology's
maybe.
growing so
Right.
fast right
Right.
now. Only God knows where it's going to be 20 years from now.
Right.
Right. Let's talk about newspapers for a minute. There's many young kids that never look at newspapers. Can newspapers do anything to get more young readers, or should they do anything, Greg?
Strap a sugar cane or something to a
Piece of candy, huh?
piece of candy. It'll get their attention. I don't think so. When you're young, you don't really have that attention span there.
Right.
So you flip to what you need to see, and then you give it to your parents.
Right. It's kind of like when you're in school and you have to read books. That's the reason you don't want to read in the future, is because you were forced to read these books. So maybe if you were
Right.
forced to read a newspaper, you wouldn't want to read it when you get older.
Yeah, I think if a 16, 17-year-old wants to read the newspaper, they will pick up the newspaper
Right.
and
Right.
read it. But I know one newspaper, a local newspaper here, does a mini page for
Right.
6 and 5, 6-year-olds in that range. They play connect the dots, do crossword puzzles, things like that, and that is for them. But in a teenage range, if they want to read a newspaper, they'll pick it up and read it themselves.
That's a good point. All right, if you had to rank your favorite local newscast from a scale of 1 to 10 on how they present the news, what they do, everything they do about it, and 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how would you rank your favorite newscast?
My favorite newscast, I usually watch KTVE out of El Dorado.
Right.
And I think they do a very good job. I would probably give them an 8.5.
8.5.
For what their budget is and their time limit, I think
Right.
they get the news out there as much as they can. They come on at 5 o'clock, they come back on at 6, and then they come back on at 10. So I think they have a wide variety of different times that they come on, so people there are able to get home and watch the news.
That's a good point. Greg?
I really don't watch the news that much, but when I do watch the news, things like ESPN, just like yours, they have many kinds of times where they air shows, and
Right.
it's just, I don't know, it's
More variety.
Yeah.
Right. Understand that. Well, if I had to rank my favorite newscast, I would give them a 9, because it's hard to do a newscast. It's hard to get all the information
Oh, yeah.
you need and stuff.
In 30 minutes.
So that's just something that you just have to look at, all the stuff, the technology they have and everything. Viola?
Well, my favorite newscast would probably be 2020 or Tom Brokaw. I'm more into the national news.
Right.
And Tom Brokaw, I'd have to give him a 10.
He's been there for years.
He's been there for years. He's just Tom Brokaw.
All right. That concludes this edition of the SAU Report. I'm Charles Bostick.
And I'm Viola Freeman.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.